Let me ask you something. Have you ever had this feeling that there's a part of you that's hidden? A side you don't really know, but you can feel it's there and it has this surprising, sometimes really disruptive power over your life? Well, this isn't just some vague idea. It's a core concept from the psychologist Carl Jung. And trust me, understanding it can change pretty much everything. You know what I'm talking about, right? That sudden, totally irrational flash of anger that seems to come out of nowhere. Or maybe that moment you catch your reflection and for a split second you feel like you're looking at a stranger. According to Jung, these aren't just random glitches in the system. They're messages from your other half. So, you've got the you that you know, the one you show to the world. That's your conscious identity, what Jung called the ego. But he believed that for every single part of us that we bring into the light, there's another part that we keep in the dark. Today, we're going to take a journey to meet this hidden half. We are going to meet the shadow. All right, so what in the world did Carl Jung actually mean by the shadow archetype? To get our heads around it, we don't need to dive into a dense textbook. We can start with a story, one you probably already know. Think about the classic story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's pretty much the perfect metaphor for what Jung was talking about. He saw this inner split in all of us. We all have that respectable, button-up Dr. Jekyll that we present in public, but we also have a wild, impulsive Mr. Hyde lurking just under the surface. So at its core, the shadow is like the mind's basement. It's where we shove everything we don't want to admit about ourselves. All the traits we find embarrassing or unacceptable, or maybe even a little immoral. Now, it's not necessarily evil, but it's everything our conscious mind has decided to disown and push down into the darkness. Okay, so if this shadow character lives way down in our unconscious, how do we ever actually meet it? Well, it turns out it sends us messages, and it speaks a very particular language, the language of dreams. You know, unlike someone like Freud, who kind of saw the unconscious as just a dumping ground for our repressed urges, Jung saw it completely differently. To him, it was a whole other world, a world that is alive, vital, and just incredibly rich with wisdom and creative energy. And the native language of this inner world, it's symbols. And in our dreams, that's where the shadow really comes out to play. It often shows up as these figures that represent something we've ignored. Maybe it's a dark, unknown person following you. That could be a fear you won't face, or a wild, untamed animal, symbolizing a natural instinct you've suppressed. It could even show up as an old friend you haven't seen in years, representing a part of yourself, like your spontaneity, that you've lost touch with. And this is really the heart of Jung's idea here. He believed these symbols aren't just random mental noise. Our psyche creates them as naturally as a plant produces a flower. They're a sign of life, and they're always trying to communicate something important to our conscious mind. But here's the thing. The shadow doesn't just hang out in our dreams. It shows up clear as day in our waking lives. And it usually happens in our most intense and, let's be honest, confusing interactions with other people. This happens through a really powerful psychological trick called projection. Here's how it works. It's pretty simple. First, we take a quality we don't like in ourselves, let's say arrogance, and we deny it. We push it down. Then, our unconscious mind spots that exact quality in someone else. And finally, boom, we have this massive, over-the-top emotional reaction. That person's arrogance drives us absolutely nuts because we're not just reacting to them, we're reacting to the disowned part of ourselves. You know that feeling of love at first sight? That's basically the same mechanism, projecting an idealized inner part of yourself onto someone else. But it works just as powerfully in reverse. When you feel that instant irrational dislike for someone, well, there's a pretty good chance you've just met your own shadow in the wild. And this isn't just an individual thing. Whole societies do it on a massive scale. Jung actually saw the Cold War as a giant, collective projection. Each side pointed at the other and called them the embodiment of pure evil. It was a way for each nation to project its own national shadow onto an enemy so they could feel virtuous and good while ignoring their own capacity for darkness. So if we all have this shadow, what are we supposed to do about it? Jung's answer is pretty radical. The goal isn't to fight it or defeat it or destroy it. The goal is to do something much harder and way more rewarding, to integrate it. He called this whole process individuation. You can think of it as the journey of a lifetime. It's where we slowly, carefully bring the hidden parts of ourselves into the light. The idea is for your conscious ego and your vast unconscious mind to learn to live together,
to complement each other instead of constantly being at war.
And this part is absolutely critical. The shadow actually has two sides. Yes, of course, it contains some of the darker impulses we need to be aware of and manage. But, and this is a big but, it also holds so much positive energy. Our creativity, our raw vitality, our deepest instincts, a lot of that stuff gets buried down there too, just because it was too messy or too wild for our neat and tidy conscious personality to handle. So the real work isn't about getting rid of the darkness. It's about consciously and carefully assimilating its contents. When you start to acknowledge and integrate these lost parts of yourself, you don't become evil, you become whole. Your entire personality actually gets modified. It gets deeper and a whole lot more resilient. So, we've defined the shadow. We've seen how it speaks to us through dreams and projections, and we know the goal is integration. But how do you actually start a conversation with your own hidden self? Jung's advice here is surprisingly simple, though definitely not easy. Don't run from it. Don't fight it. Turn and face it. Approach that darkness inside you, not with fear or judgment, but with a kind of naive curiosity, as if you're meeting someone for the first time. Ask it what it wants. Treat it not like an enemy, but like a lost part of yourself that just wants to come home. And that really just leaves us with one final, very personal question. Think about those irrational reactions you have, those weird dreams, those people who just push all your buttons. If you were to approach all of that with curiosity instead of judgment, what might you discover? What vital message is your shadow trying to tell you?